Now Sweeney, Dwayne Sweeney! Sweeney's over!
Can you please hand it over to your captain, Dwayne Sweeney?
Welcome to Real Tales with Sweens, proudly brought to you by Fish City Hamilton. Fish City has been servicing the Waikatos fishing, boating and outdoor needs for over 30 years. And now, with the help of their online store, their great range of products and outstanding customer service is available across New Zealand. This episode I sit down with Bonze and we discuss the evolution of my boat, Mini Chiefie. We share in detail the changes we have made and the learnings we have taken along the way. The podcast has been a great platform for us to share information to help keen fishers build their confidence when targeting marlin. As you'll hear, the journey has been extremely enjoyable for us, and we hope that you can take some learnings that we have had and apply them to your fishing. As always, the show notes will be available on the Real Tales with Sweens Instagram and Facebook pages, as well as the website realtaleswithsweens.com. Good George have a 15% discount available for all you listeners. Just use the discount code REALTALES before checking out of their online store. The link for their store is also available on the realtaleswithsweens.com homepage. Lastly to Bonze, awesome catching up again mate, and looking forward to the next one. So join me as we share the evolution of Mini Chiefie. Enjoy the podcast. Alright, so sitting here with Bonze, we just had a real awesome evening over at the Koro over in Mount Maunganui. Took Mini Chiefie and put on display. As I would have said in the intro, this podcast is going to be about the evolution of Mini Chiefie and where we've got to and why. Because it's been a hell of a journey, Bonze, to this point.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool, eh? Like, that was the good thing about last night, to sort of, like anyone who's actually listened to any of these podcasts, to see the actual boat in real life, you know?
Yeah, because it gives, like, really good perspective, right? That's you heard it last night. Man, it's so small.
Yeah.
yeah.
It is small, mate.
It is small,
you know?
very.
Yeah, and you're a big man, too.
Yeah. Yeah, the boat didn't look that small when you were in it, but then when I jumped in, it was gave it proportion again.
Yeah.
But it's been a really cool journey of learning, and that's the exciting bit for us about sharing this.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. I mean, for me, from like a work side of things, it's been the coolest thing, like project I've like been involved with, to see it. Like, you have ideas and thoughts, and then to try it, especially on your little boat. We're like, if we can do it on this boat, we can do it on any boat, you know. So to see where you started and then your fishing evolved, and then we're like, okay, what can we do here to improve this, you know? And then you try it, and it's like, it's either worked or it hasn't. We've been lucky enough that most of the things that we've tried have worked, you know? And just how much we've actually changed it from the start to where you are now, you know? Yeah.
Well, you talked about it there, like most of the changes that we've made have worked, but a big part of that is because we didn't just try it, it's kind of like a lot of learned experience. Like, obviously you have a great history with the sport of marlin fishing, and like that's well documented, and if you listen to the podcast before, you'll know that, but it's your ability to, I guess, transfer your learnings into a practical sense.
Well, yeah,
that has helped me a lot.
Yeah, definitely. But the other thing is too, like, since I don't get a chance to fish as much as I used to, so I rely on other people's fishing to give me the thought processes, if you know what I mean. So you giving me feedback, I sit there in my factory while I'm making lures, and then I think about things a lot. So I'm like, oh yeah, what can we do here that's achieves the result that we, and it's all just ideas. Yeah. You know, so you're like, okay, well look, man.
Ideas and theories.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, what do you reckon of this, Sweens?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then you'll give me some feedback, and it's like, okay, we'll come up with a plan. Let's try this, you know, and that's been the cool thing of the whole journey, you know, of it. And so like, it's what spins my wheels, and then obviously get to do it to like people listen to this and then get to try it and they're like, oh man, that was cool, you know? Yeah. So,
And I was amazed that last night, I guess the I suppose it's been kind of clear the reach that the podcast has had through the fishing community in New Zealand. But it was really cool to see it in person.
Yeah.
You know, like not only see the boat in person for those people that have listened to the podcast, but for me personally to see a lot of faces, put a lot of faces to the names and to the social media handles, you would say. Like a lot of people reach out over, the past 3 years that I've started the podcast, and it was really cool to meet some of those people, shake their hands. I really enjoy people. That's why I like the podcast. I love sitting down and yarning.
Mate,
So it was actually so cool to like see some of those faces and to hear their cool story and their journey that they've had with their fishing and their growth and their confidence and lots of things like that.
Yeah, no, it was definitely cool. And just, I was blown away by how far some of the people have come. I was like, oh man, it's Gisborne. It's like Auckland.
Gisborne, a couple from Auckland, eh?
Oh man,
Yeah, and we're in Tauranga, so for those that I guess are listening that aren't from New Zealand, what's the drive to Gizzy?
I don't know.
5 hours, probably?
But
I'd
I
guess,
mean,
4 or
Auckland's
5.
3,
Auckland's
so.
3,
so it's definitely a haul, eh?
But in saying that too, there was a number of people there that have, been to your sessions for years, like I think of guys like Tim Bowker and then he's like, it's probably like the 10th one of these I've been to with Bonze, but it was really cool to see your boat and to actually see what you describe in person. But he was like, I would have come if it was about anything because I just like the people. It's good you get to catch up with like-minded people, get fizzed about fishing, have a beer, have a yarn, have a sausage, and it was a good night.
Just I was always laugh. I sort of get carried away, mate, because I can just keep talking, you know.
Well, it's easy when you're passionate about something, right? Like that's why the podcast is a great format because you're talking to people. If you do it well, you're talking to people about their passion, something that they love, about themselves, their experiences, their journey. So it's easy to talk about that stuff because there is that like real joy element to it.
And the other thing was really interesting for me was listening to people's interpretation of what you describe in the podcast and then them actually turning up and seeing what we were talking about. And they're like, oh man, I've done it a bit different to this. They're like, I didn't quite understand what you guys were talking about, but now I see it. I was like, okay, I'm going to change this a little bit. But most people were pretty on it with what they'd done. But it was like interesting to hear like, okay, I didn't quite understand that. But then as soon as they get to see it, like, oh man, I understand it straight away, So that was pretty cool.
It's always interesting that, like the interpretation that how different people receive knowledge is like it's quite a fascinating thing, really. Like I do a bit of coaching now, and obviously everybody learns a little bit different, and you learn that, and it's about managing those sorts of people. And you obviously get like people from all walks of life love fishing, so you get all these different, I guess, kind of people that process information differently.
But it's also on my side is how I put the knowledge out there. Is I struggle with that sometimes, and now it's probably more so because like we're doing this, and there's like it's actually a simple thing that we're trying to portray, but it's been quite a complicated background journey to get there. So my brain's sort of like, as soon as somebody asks a question, I'm like, how do I say that we got to this point? Like, how do we say we got this outcome in a simple way, but it was actually a lot in behind it? And that's the good thing about this podcast. What we're going to talk about is like, okay, we came to this outcome, but this is why we came to this outcome. And that's sometimes what I struggle with is getting that like knowledge in my head across in a clear way. So the great thing about the podcast is I can go right into the depth, and
because it is like it's a hard thing, especially when you're dealing with people face to face and you're busy, or a crowd like last night, because I guess the point we got it to, it's really simple, especially in our heads, because we've had all that lived experience and journey and the learnings to get to that simple point. But sometimes when you state that simple point, people are like, it can't be that simple. But it is, but there's a process to making it simple. And like I mentioned it last night in terms of my professional career has helped me do that, right?
Yeah.
So being a professional rugby player, dealing with pressure,
Yeah.
all that kind of things. Like lots of people made the comment of like, man, you're so calm.
Yeah.
You know, fish comes in, see your videos, you're like, oh, yeah, there's a marlin there. Like, oh shit, we got 3 on.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but you're so calm, but it's that trained, like my body, my mindset, my I guess my mental strength has been trained to that point.
Yeah.
So I know how to simplify things under pressure
Yeah.
because I had to survive because of the environment that I lived in on a daily basis. So for me, it's been a cool journey to, I guess, share my learnings with you on that side of things, because it works quite well us together, and that's with those strengths. You got all the knowledge, and then I've got the mental strength of being able to break things down, which you do have as well, but then there's also, like, it just sort of balances off quite nicely.
Yeah. No, it's a huge thing. Like, that's what I was trying to explain to everyone, that the fishing is a lot in your head, eh? And people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, a lot of it's got to do with like confidence, and that's why the process is so important, and your setup is so important, because it just
doesn't let doubt
yeah,
creep in.
exactly. And that's what I was saying to everyone last night. I was messing with you about your boat not making the right noise and all this kind of stuff, you know, and about all this, like, all the stray current that every boat has when it has a bad day and that, you know. I mean, obviously there's parts to that that are true, but I mean, to the most part, we just didn't run over a fish that day when we didn't catch one, you know.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll discuss that as we go like further through this, and people have heard me say it on the previous podcasts if you'd listen to those. But once you get the process and the setup right, and you build your confidence over time, and there's nothing like time, right? You can have the perfect setup, but if you've only fished twice ever in your life, you're not going to have the learnt knowledge of what looks good to you, what the area is producing and why. All of that's just time on the water.
Correct.
And then you kind of build that sort of confidence and that belief. So when you're out there, I can be really content with my fishing. Like, I know when I fish well, and I've had some days where I feel like I've fished awesome and I haven't had a bite. Yeah. But I'm just like, wow, we didn't run one over. And then I've had other days where I've caught one and I'm like, fuck, that was lucky. Like, you know, I've been out there and just kind of like never really kind of felt settled, didn't feel like I was in a good area, and then kind of in between, like, fuck, should I go to this spot? Should I go here? You know, kind of traveling, like maybe we'll go over there for a look, and you travel, and then out of nowhere, bang, got them on. You're like, oh shit. But again, to me, that's the setup that created that fish.
That's exactly what I was going to say to you, man. Like, you might not have felt good, but your base of one, boat setup, and two, knowledge probably accounted for that fish.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but then when you get into a groove and you get into a good
That's
spot,
where it
and
really,
to me, that is, I would way rather roll out there and work an area for 2 or 3 hours and catch a fish than roll up and hook one first pass.
I'll take the first pass.
Would you?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. For me, it's different.
The only reason I say that is because
then you know
then I know they're there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can get that.
Yeah, but
it's just, it is a different feeling.
Yeah. I actually worked for that. I picked a spot.
Yeah.
It looked good. I had all the signs that I wanted, and I just trusted the process. And bang, there it was. You know, you're like, I earned that one. You know, like I know exactly what you're talking about. So it's like hunting, man. Yep. That's why you like it so much, probably. I think that's like when that sort of fish, you know, like you're like, got all the signs here are right. Like I've made my plan. Yeah, it looks good here. I'm going to give it some time. And bang, you know, like after a few passes, you got, I got one. You know, like, or I raised one. You like knew it was here, you know. But but still getting that one the first passes.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah,
it's I had that a couple of times this year. Yeah. But again, going back to an area where I'd had success, like, you know, in the trips prior, and then sort of got there and thought, like this, you know, I'll go back there, check what it's like, and come straight over and, it looks good again, and then bang, straight away, it's, they're here, and then just settle in for the day. Yeah, exactly. Like there was a couple of days, like one day, or the one I'm just talking about, we actually did it was second pass. We did one pass through in the morning, just over like a spot that I was continuously producing, and people say Raglan's flat. I disagree, because there was something in this spot.
It doesn't
Doesn't show on the sounder,
Yeah.
but there was definitely a lift, and you could see the lift visibly, and there was bait holding directly on the lift. So to me, that was telling me
but
that
the other thing
water's
is too,
pushing.
you know, like you're trolling, so you're not gonna, even if it's only a subtle lift, you're not gonna see that difference really.
No, on the
like,
sounder.
Yeah, if you went quickly over it, you may see a little bit of a difference, you know. So yeah, sometimes quite hard to see a subtle lift, and that's all it needs. You know, like it's like you see a piece of foul in the middle of the sand.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a little bit of foul, but that's where the fish are.
Yeah,
you know, like, so it could be the same sort of thing.
Yeah, same kind of concept.
You know?
Yeah. But yeah, I went over that little rise in the morning, and it looked good again. But I was like, I just want to check a spot just outside here, because the direction the current was pushing, and this spot ended up being the spot that produced the triple at the end of the season. But I just was like, I just want to go out there and just have a look, because 2 years prior, and the current was pushing the same direction. 2 years prior, that spot, I raised 14 fish in one day and had 9 bites.
Yeah.
It was like insane day. So, and that was the first year I set the boat up.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I just want to go and have a look.
Yeah.
And then that was the first spot. I also had that awesome video of that marlin on the teaser. It's gone around.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, we'll just go out there. It's only 1.5 miles, you know, or 2 miles past where we were. So I moseyed out, literally ran the mark over, and a fish on the teaser straight away.
Yeah.
Came up, there he is, crossed over, ate the short, fell off, like pulled 10 meters and came off.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Like, but nothing there. Like, didn't see no sign, wasn't marking any bait, but very similar to the day I raised the 14 fish.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, there's something there, or it's a travel window or something. And then so we worked that for a couple of hours, and had another fish come right up the back of the boat and put its fin out between the boat and the first wake.
Yeah.
And I saw it pop up, and I was like, what? You know, sort of 6 inches, or not even that, probably 4 inches of the top of its dorsal sticking out of the water. And I kind of saw it, and I was like, and it was maybe 20 minutes post that fish on the teaser.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, fuck. And then I looked at Jesse, who was with me, and he was like, did you see that? And I was like, oh, fuck, did you see it? Because I thought I was seeing things, you know. I was like, he was like, what the fuck was that? Was that a dolphin or something? I was like, bro, that wasn't a dolphin.
Yeah.
That was a marlin.
Yeah.
And he was like, bullshit. And I was like, yeah, that was the top of a dorsal. I didn't, like, you know, I didn't think what I saw was real until it was confirmed by him seeing it too. And then where he came up is where my underwater lights sit on my boat. So they're right out on the edge.
Lights,
yeah.
mate.
So he must have come to the light
Yeah.
and been looking like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Who's got their lights on in the daytime kind of thing. Wasting power. But anyway, like, yeah, that sort of happened, and we worked that spot for, probably a good, like, couple of hours. And then I was like, my gut was telling me, even though we'd seen a fish there, just the way the water was pushing and how that bait was stacked on that mark, I was like, we need to go and have another look.
Yeah.
And I was just like, we'll mosey in. So anyway, I lined my run up in, had to obviously quarter the sea, because couldn't go straight in behind it, would just get pushed in the whole way. And boat obviously being small, just surges, and you don't want to troll down swell and with the current anyway. So quartered it to get the angle right, sort of ran past the mark, did a turn, and happened to go past Ross Christensen that owns FC Boats, and he was out in the demonstrator, and he was just setting the gear, he'd come out late, and then he was like, oh, hey Sweens, how's it going? I was like, yeah, good. He goes, oh, any action? I was like, nah, we had one up on the teaser this morning, and you know, he bit and fell off, but and then had another one come in behind the boat, but yeah, we're just going to have a little look where I've been getting them. He's, oh yeah, nice, yeah, we're just going to set the gear. And I watched him stop the boat, and I literally turned like right in front of him, turned around, lined my run up, and I would have gone 30, 40 seconds, maybe a minute after the turn, and then there he was, boom, went straight over the mark, and fish straight up, smoked the short rigger, and had another one on the short corner that didn't eat. Yeah. And then we were on straight away. And then Ross was sitting there putting his gear out, putting his riggers out, and our fish is jumping out out the back. So he's like, holy shit. And then,
good.
Yeah, but then we, again to that, like we got that fish, caught it, and then just went back and just literally settled into that run. I was like, okay, they're here. And I just settled in. A lot of boats around that hadn't really had a lot of action. There was a lot of really good sign there, but obviously the fish just hadn't like stuck their heads up yet. So we just sort of nestled in and worked that spot again, and like a few good hours sort of went by, and then we were working. And I was like, oh, we'll do a couple more passes and we'll go in. Starting to get pretty late, and then sure enough, turn. We're like, oh, well, one more pass, run up over top, and then there he is, all over the long corner, and hooked him. And then Ross was radioing us, and as the fish had bit and was jumping, and he was like, oh, what time are you going to head in? Like, you follow us in sort of thing, because it was getting late in the day, but we really didn't want to leave because it looked so good. And there was a lot of boats around, but what it also kind of taught me is those fish were really isolated in where they were holding. So the fact that I'd stayed disciplined to that spot, I got the bite. No one else got another bite. Yeah, so those fish were, for whatever reason, were stuck on that, they were holding on that one spot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then, eventually got hold of him once we cleared all the gear and the fish settled down. He's like, when are you going to go? And I was like, oh, well, we're on at the moment. He's like, fuck me. And then he was like, oh, okay. He goes, oh, well, we'll hang around until you catch the fish, Yeah. I was like, sweet as. And he goes, oh, where are you? And I said, oh, just up from where I saw you this morning. And he's like, oh, yeah. We're just like a little bit further south. We'll make our way up. And he came up, and we'd out to we had the fish, close to the boat, and got some photos and on the leader, and got all our photos, tagged the fish, let it go, and they were like, oh, that was mean. And I radioed Ross, and he didn't answer. And I was like, oh, okay, hang on. So then we're like, oh, well, he must have gone. So then anyway, we're up and start steaming, and then I'm like, oh, there's an FC boat. And I looked on the sounder, right on top of the mark, rigger up, fish on. And I was like, oh, there we go. Yeah. And then I got hold of him, swung in, and we took a bunch of photos while they're fighting the fish, and waited till they caught it and got some photos. And he actually had Kev that runs the Fish City, runs the showroom on the boat, and it was his first ever marlin.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So it was an awesome day. It was really good. But it just sort of shows that kind of once you spend that time on the water and you have that sort of gut feeling, and you've got confidence in what you're
that all
producing.
Stems from your setup.
Yeah, exactly. Because you got the confidence, and then I'm really content when I miss a fish too, because I'm like, well, I did everything I could have done. I can't control how the fish eats it. But I got the fish up. He came in. He just didn't eat it properly. And like people will come with me and they're like, bro, aren't you gutted? Like fucking fell off. And I was like, bro, I've fished enough for these things. They fall off all the time.
But that's the whole thing, like what we're talking about and what we've done with your boat. Like you hit the nail on the head there, like, I can't control how it eats. But
how you set the boat up can trigger instincts to try and get better eats.
I mean, that's what's been so cool with what it's got to now, of what we changed this year. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
Because I guess, do we kind of recap the season, I guess?
I think that's the biggest thing, like, because you started out with the old setup, and then like probably 3/4 of the way through we changed it. Would that be about right?
Yeah, it probably was, to be fair. Maybe 2/3 to 3/4. Like, I think it was late February. It was definitely after Nationals.
Well, it all stemmed from that blue marlin bite, really, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
That we had
2 years ago?
2 years ago, I was riding with Ye, and I'm sure...
or last year. Not the season just gone, the one prior. 2 seasons
and it's the
ago.
one you got on your Instagram, and like followed us for like 8 minutes or something. And I was like, oh man, the same as you saying, seeing things, and I'm like, dude, I'm pretty sure I just seen a marlin in the spread, And I'm like, no. And then sure enough, get a bite out of a blue, But that was pretty much the triggering point for the next step, really,
Yeah, so like I guess to take it back to the start, like obviously everyone's heard most people have. If you haven't, go and listen to the Setup podcast, or listen to Bonze's first one, just to give a good background on him and fishing and how I think about it, how he thinks about it. Then from there we obviously set my boat up. We transitioned into that. There's the Setup podcast, then there's the teaser system one. So there's this is kind of another string to that bow or flow on effect. But what I guess my mindset right from the start was I caught marlin on baits, and that's what I was going to do with Mini Chiefie, and that's, you know, because big boats raise more fish. You know, I just can't troll lures very well, like whatever. But obviously went through a really awesome journey of learning, and then got great knowledge from Bonze, and then got to the point you would have heard through the setup stage and made those changes, and then instantly, you know, like first season caught 9 and had a shitload of action, had a lot of teaser action, which then stemmed to the teaser system podcast and like how we did that. But there was a really, well, you know, to cap last year, I had my best season I've ever had. So caught 12 fish. But what was amazing is the last little changes we made. I fished 5 days for, there must have been more than 12 fish, must have been 13. Yeah, I fished 5 days on Mini Chiefie post these changes that we're going to talk about, and went 5 days for 11 fish. Yeah, and caught a fish every day.
It was massive.
Raised like a minute. I think the least amount of fish I raised in a day was 2. But it probably averaged 4 fish a day in the gear.
Yeah.
Like a lot of doubles, a lot of 2 fish come up.
Yeah.
So it was, and yep, the fishing was good. But like I said, I fished that spot that day. We caught 2 that day. Not another boat around us caught a fish. Couple had one on that was, and there was probably in the general area maybe a dozen boats.
Yeah.
So there was something to, you know, there's clearly in that something to what I was doing.
Yeah, and you were still fishing the same way before.
You
know, like, but that's why I take it back to that whole thing about the blue marlin, was that bite and the follow, and it was like, man, you know, we always talk about really want to catch a blue marlin, you know, in your boat. And then I'm like, well, look, like obviously there's no, like, you're going to get bites. And what that bite told us though was like, maybe we're going a little bit too slow. And then you start thinking about that, eh? So you're like, oh yeah, my rigger bites are pretty average too, eh? You know?
Corner bites are good.
You're like, oh, catch all my fish on the corners, eh? So you're like, okay, so, I mean, for me, you tell me that, and then I see that, and then, you know, so you sit there in winter, and you're like, oh yeah, start thinking about things, you know? You're like, oh and then like, I say, okay, well, come up with some ideas, like what's going to change this? What's the biggest factor? You know, what do I need? Like, what would you do? Is like more speed. And I'm like, oh man, well, how do we do that in your little boat?
Yeah, because the thing was like, so I used to troll between probably, depending on the day, between like 6.2 to, on a really good day, 6.8 knots in Mini Chiefie. And that was like, 6.8 was like pushing it. Like it'd be, you know, any touch of sea will push me onto the plane, and it'd be a bit of a shit fight. So it was a lot of concentration to get the boat to troll at that kind of speed. So most of the time I would sort of sit at 6.5 knots. And I got plenty of bites. And raised plenty of fish. So the presentation was fine. But what I noticed a lot, well, what we noticed, and the beauty of me filming how I do, and having, you know, obviously capturing all the bites, you get to see the fish's behaviour and study it and watch it back, rather than just trying to rethink.
It's crack up. It's like watching your rugby game.
Analysing it. All right, we're going to have a debrief post fishing. Come and sit down. All right, what did you learn today? Well, I learned that my boat doesn't go fast enough on the track.
It's so funny.
But like you can see it clearly in their behaviour, and you see the difference in the bites I get in the corner. Because of obviously the action of the lures, a lot more aggressive, and then obviously the teasers. So what I kind of, I guess, my observations was like, okay, I need to pull the fish in close all the time, and I'm going to get mean bites out of my corners, so I need them coming on the teasers, and that kind of, I guess, was a big learn, and the teaser system podcast that we kind of shared like around that. But what we noticed on the behaviour of all my rigger bites, real lazy. Like, and then even the differences of lures, like that blue marlin bite on that day, we had the BTK
Yeah.
in that long corner,
Yeah.
and then we put the aranui out afterwards. If that aranui had been in there, he would have smoked it, I reckon.
Yeah,
a lot more aggressive.
A lot more aggressive bite.
Yeah. Would have
for
got
sure.
would have got a more aggressive bite.
Yeah, I'm pretty
what
sure
we
we would
did.
have, eh? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like these are all
Yeah.
assumptions, obviously,
Yeah.
but there's definitely some.
But it's
proof.
something that you learn,
Yeah, there's
like
definitely
from
some,
seeing.
like, you know, like
Yeah.
it's not just a, like, I guess it's a pretty calculated assumption, you know.
Yeah.
Just from past and like past bites, obviously, and that, you know. So like that was the thing with your boat, like was like, okay, we've got to get more speed for a start. We're gonna struggle getting more speed, so because of your boat in general, you know,
Yeah.
because it's dictated by a waterline length. But then obviously, I didn't know much about outboards and stuff and gear ratios and all this kind of stuff. So that obviously we'll get into that. But then just off the top of your head, like, okay, well, outriggers.
Yeah.
Longer, steeper.
Yeah, longer, steeper, and let's try and get 2 teasers in the water.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
my original theory is, okay, I need the fish coming
Yeah.
closer.
Yeah.
Fish that day with you, which we spoke about on the teaser system podcast with that awesome blue marlin bite. But seeing Kraken in action.
Oh, yeah, on my boat.
On the boat, like seeing the double teaser chain, parallel spread.
Yeah.
Like you go back to the mental aspect.
Yeah.
I really liked the visual of
Yeah.
that. Like I was like, oh yeah, that looks good to me.
Yeah, it
And then I
does,
started thinking like, oh man, I need to get 2 teaser chains in
Yeah.
because of what I'd noticed and learnt from my corner bite. So I'm like, if I can pull more and more fish in on my chains, I'm going to get way better corner bites.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's going to be my changing aspect because I'd sort of succumb to the fact that speed is not going to be something that I'm going to achieve because of what what I tried to do, what I'd learnt from fishing the boat across the, I guess the 6 seasons that I had. I was like, okay, the riggers is going to be the big change, getting a little bit more height, which will help my longer ones, but I need to get 2 chains in the water.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, how do we do that? So we started, obviously, people mount their electric reels in the roof and a hard top.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, how are we going to do this? Do we make a bracket on Mini Chiefie that clicks onto the bimini, onto the front screen? Like, how do we do it? And we're sitting in the factory and we're discussing this and we're like, man, fuck, how do we do it? And then you're like, well, why don't you just mount the reels on the riggers? And I was like, oh yeah, we could do that. And it was like, what we do, like make a bracket on them or whatever. And then I was like, well, what if we built them on like a bent butt section, like a chair, bent butt?
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh yeah, that could work. So get in touch with Tony at Kilwell. And then, he passes on to Jace Daniels. Awesome. I really want to do.
Wizard, eh?
Yeah, wizard. And I really want to do.
Yeah.
We were just talking about this before we came on air, but really want to do a podcast with Jace.
Yeah.
He's very clever.
Yeah.
But he's this kind of mastermind behind the outriggers and
he's
and stuff.
like you explain something to him, he may not know the like why it needs to be like that, but he's like, oh, I can make it do it exactly what you're saying, eh? And you're like, oh, well, that's me. That's what I need.
So and then he chucked me on the phone to Jace. I was like, this is what I'm thinking, and he was like, oh yeah, I can make that.
Yeah.
And then I think it was 2 days later they'd started them. 4 days later I picked them up.
Yeah.
And then it just coincided with the outboard, but I think we'll talk about the riggers first.
Yeah.
And anyway, so how it is, like I've got obviously a chair bent butt section. Those that were at Decorah last night would have seen that in person. Yeah. And it was quite interesting because Campbell Carter came up to me and goes, bro, that is like big brain energy. Yeah. He was like, why has no one ever thought of that? That's so clever. Yeah. He's just like, that's so good. It's so simple. Yeah. Like, so we effectively, with Mini Chiefie, how I used to run teaser was on teaser rod. So what we actually added an extra teaser in with one less thing. Yeah, because all of a sudden it was in one. Like the I guess the teaser reels and the riggers is all one piece. So that's what we had, and there was a good little like learning process to that, because I was like, okay, well I need these to be able to come apart because obviously for transport and travel. So then I learnt that, okay, there's got to be, I need the pulley system and everything to be able to go through the eyes on the rigger, to be able to clip to the rigger, to be, otherwise it's going to be a nightmare. So that there was a lot of work that went into that in terms of like the terminal tackle.
Yeah.
To make sure that was right,
Yeah.
and I found the right bits, and that was all good. But what also happened was in that process, because we put a longer section, it's a 4.5 meter pole with a 500 extra section in the end of it, is with that process because I needed the line to be guided through the eyes, I added an extra eye, but I also added a bigger eye bolt, which took some extra carbon out of the pole. So I created a weak point. So the very first day I went out, I snapped an outrigger.
Yeah.
And
I
it
remember
was
that.
and it's like, and if you watch the video and the footage, it's something I've never shared, but I've got no drama in sharing it. I just haven't.
Well,
and Tony and that, like, they don't care because it was a learning process.
Yeah, but that's prototyping, and as we always say, you don't learn from your successes, you learn from your failures.
Yeah, and we're just lucky it failed on the first day, so I got it right.
Otherwise, you would have gone and they could have possibly made them.
Yeah.
And they have failures, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so like it's good, like, and that's all the things that we sort of talk about is there's actually like products and stuff. Like it's not like you just
works first time every time.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
You know.
It's not like Six Panther, eh? What's on Anchorman?
I haven't
Works,
seen that. Mate.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works 100% of the time, every time, sometimes.
Sometimes.
Or something like that. So the way he words it is quite funny because it basically means like fucking nothing ever works first time.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But that's like getting that all set up was like massive.
Yeah, and then so to that, like obviously like snap the outrigger, but what I noticed that day is like a lot of fish, and they were on the riggers and they were hot.
Well, that's
like,
how you broke it.
Real aggressive bites.
Broke it on the bite, eh?
Yeah, on the bite. But if you actually look at it, like there isn't a lot of stress that comes through the rigger.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, clearly it was just we'd taken too much carbon out of the pole. We'd also taken a lot of the glass out of those poles and made them a lot lighter. So it was like more carbon, less glass. Yeah. And it might have even been full carbon from memory, but they were super light. Yeah. But because we'd drilled a bigger eye bolt through, we'd taken out too much mass out of that section. Yeah. And that was the exact section that I stay my riggers forward. So it was like the one central pivot point, and we'd made it too weak. So now what Jason did with the next set is he put a spigot through there on the internal. So that spreads the load across a longer section, and it's like strong as. And no dramas. But also with the rigging, because when I re-rigged them, I hadn't quite got the tension right, and it was pulling too even, where I needed to pull more tension from the tips of the riggers. Yes. So needed the tips of the riggers to actually come down tight first to put a flex in the pole, versus like having the same tension. This is hard to explain on a podcast, but there's some people out there that will understand this. But because the corner lure or corner line runs from further down the pole, so if you've got an even tension, you're not getting the full loaded flex out of the rigger, which I noticed on the bite on the other side of the fish we caught. So we're standing there with this broken rigger trying to untangle the mess that had been created. And
in your little boat.
And there's three of us in there, and we're trying to sort all this shit out, and we've got rigger going, and I'm standing there, trying to untangle everything. Dan's holding the rigger, and it's going across, and we're trying to angle it through the other rods, so in case we get a bite, we don't get another tangle. And anyway, we're doing so, and then this fish comes in, and it's hot on the other side, and we're like, oh, what was that? Like, seen a big splash, you know? And then we're like, oh, okay, fuck, what was that? And then Dan's like, oh, I saw something. And then I'm like, oh, quickly, like, trying to move the rod out of the way. And then Mark Collins leans outside, and goes, oh, bro, he's going to eat it. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, shit, there's a fish there. Yeah. And it was hot, and then, came in and bit and ate. Yeah. But what I noticed on that side is there was a lot of flex in the rigger line before the clip let go. And it was because I didn't have the tension right. So the corner was pulling tight before the rigger line was. So there was a little bit of extra give. And then once I saw that, and again, the beauty of recording it and being able to, really pay attention to those little details, got it right, and then got the tensions right, and then from there the rest of the season, really good releases on my rigger bites, a lot more aggressive bites, having the steeper angle and the extra length. I didn't because of the steeper angle and I added the extra length, I didn't lose any width. So I put the poles in side by side with my old ones. And I literally had the exact same spread in terms of width. But I added an extra, I don't know, maybe foot of height.
A lot.
Yeah, like quite a lot of height. And then so that was the big difference with the riggers, and then just way better reactions out of the fish.
Yeah, it's crazy watching your videos how much of a difference. You know?
Well, I think I sent you a video of that day with Jesse and that fish on that rigger and that really nice bite where it just poof. And you're like, oh, the behaviour's changed.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh man, that worked. Yeah, and then it was like, that keeps working, like, because you started at the start, you're like, oh, maybe coincidence, of course, but then it keeps repeating itself, which it did for the rest of that season, and obviously when you fished, there was a lot of fish at that end there when you made all those changes, but you capitalized on it, so it definitely had an impact for sure.
Yeah, well, what I noticed is, probably couldn't put an average on it, but I want to say maybe out of my rigger bites, I was probably catching maybe 30% of them, versus that last year probably caught 80. Like at an average, I'd say. Big difference, like really big difference. And you just see it visually in their behavior. Like the fish is there and he wants it. Like he's not coming up and cruising lazy, and you could say that's a coincidence as well, but when you look at it over a sustained period of time, like I fished 2 full seasons with it the other way, saw plenty of fish, and the one consistent thing was their behavior. Even the ones I caught still a really laboured bite.
And that's, like, I come back to that one factor, which I think we'll probably get onto now, is that speed thing. That's, to me, is like, everything stems from getting that pace up in your boat. And,
which
and the
was
height, obviously, which which we already talked about. And
because it was like, that was an interesting occurrence in itself, because we started to talk about, like, oh, is there something we could do? Like, could we put trim tabs on or something like that, so we could like push the boat a bit quicker?
Perma trim.
So
all sorts of things.
All sorts of things, and then it was just coincidence that, coincidence in terms of timing, that I was lucky enough. I actually did a presentation at FC Boat, at Fish City, for their 30 years. And just did a presentation on Mini Chiefie, and it coincided with Graham from Suzuki being there. And he was like, he was a professional. He used to race cars, like, I can't remember exactly, like stock cars or something like that. And he's an Australian guy, and he really gravitated to the whole process thing, just like you did with the original podcast with Sam Kane, and the way that I spoke about it and articulated my learnings to the people that were there, because all I did was talk through how the boat's set up, why we set it up that way, and what he kind of gravitated to is like, man, this guy is interesting. Like he I guess in terms of a marketable thing, he was like, I would rather support you because you can really articulate and get your point across clearly to people, versus like just somebody that was on YouTube. And he was like, I'm not really, and I was just lucky, like when I think of that, I was just like lucky to be in the right place at the right time. And then they were like, oh, we'd love to, do something with you. So they repowered Mini Chiefie and put a...
I was laughing at that when you said that, like, oh, I'm going to repower the boat. I was like, oh, that's an option. And then you're like, yeah, man, like, they've got these, like, have and of course your boat was a magnet with the old motor, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like, okay, well, that's when we get talking. I'm like, well, can they get any more
speed out of it?
Is it possible? Like, or are we dictated by like waterline links
yeah.
and stuff like that, which obviously is a bit of it. But that's the cool thing about having Ross that built the boat as well. And then you obviously have that the Suzuki guys' knowledge, and then like, okay, well, is there anything that they can do to...
Yeah, so that was a cool little journey. I'll just talk about what we did with Ross.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I learnt lots, you know. I was like, oh, this is real interesting.
Yeah, so Ross is, for the listeners that have listened to his podcast, you'll probably know like a little bit of the background history, but he's done a lot of like boat racing, and there's a big race that they have every year here in Hamilton, the Bridge to Bridge, and he holds all the records for, you know, traveling from Cambridge to Hamilton, and you tow skiers, so like behind a race boat, and they go fast, like real fast. It's quite a dangerous sport for the skier. Nah, you wouldn't want to ski behind it if you weren't extremely talented and probably a little bit crazy. But
that was more what I was going to say.
Yeah. But
crazy outweighs the talent.
But that was kind of Ross's journey into FC boats, because obviously they had Fish City first, and then decided to get into the boat building because he had a real passion for boats, and he has a really good understanding of all the, I guess, kind of physics behind it, and he's, you know, like he's a nerd when it comes to that kind of stuff. But what I really noticed about him is like gearing and props. He is a guru, and it's probably not something that gets spoken enough about what they do at FC Boats, because when they fit all their boats, he goes through and he knows that all those boats are propped correctly for the model. So, because he does all the testing when they first build the boat, and then they decide what engine size goes on it. Then he goes through the prop range and makes sure that every boat comes out with the exact prop that it needs for that boat. So you're getting the optimum performance efficiency, which is huge, because I don't know. I don't think other people do that. I think they just get the motor that comes with the prop that's on it, and they put it to market.
Yeah.
Where a lot of
the right revs, you're good to go.
Yeah. And if you look at, those around, next time you see an FC boat, you look quite often, they all have a stainless prop on it, because Ross has actually put aftermarket props on the boats to manage. You know, to get the most out of the performance. It's not
just that, it's stability, it's all sorts of things a prop can do, which I never knew all this stuff until I went through my own journeys with my own boats, but then also with your little boat, like, oh man, that makes a huge difference too.
Yeah.
And learning about that.
Yeah, so what we did, I guess, to kind of work it out, because I said to Ross, I was like, I really want to try and get more troll speed out of the boat. And he was like, oh, okay. So he went through, he goes, okay, tell me what your boat does now. So I gave him all the numbers. He was like, okay, so troll speed, you're doing this? Yep. Okay, what does it do flat out? And I was like, 32 knots or whatever. And I go, 32 knots if it's, just me, flat calm, on the lake, Firth Thames, trim it up, give it, feed it, you know. He's like, oh, yeah. And he goes, shit, okay. And he did all the equations off a mercury outboard and stuff, and the revs and that, and he goes, so what's it revving at that? And then he goes, it'll be revving at this. I'm like, yep, that's what it gets to. And he's like, okay, cool. And he goes, all right. And he goes, holy shit. And I was like, what? Because he did his little equation thing, and he was like, that your boat is propped perfectly. He's like, you've got a 5% slip rate, which is what we try and achieve out of a race boat. And I was like, oh shit, is that good? And he goes, oh, I don't think we're going to be able to match that. Like, he goes, I've never seen that without actually hand making or hand finishing a prop. So he goes, you've just that little four blade that you've got on your 60 Mercury is just, it's money. Like he goes, I don't think we're ever going to get that performance out of a prop. And then because he understands all the gearing and the gear ratio. This is where it
started to get really interesting
this is where
for
it got,
me. I was like,
holy. And he goes, okay, so we've got Suzuki. He goes, oh yeah, what's the gearing on it? So I told him the gearing. So I was like, I don't know, I think my Mercury was a 1.18 to whatever, to 1. I don't know the exact numbers, so if you're listening, don't take this as gospel. And then the Suzuki is like a 1.74 to 1 or something. So whatever that means is that the shaft turns a certain amount of times to spin the prop. So what happens is the Suzuki spins faster, so then where the Merc is closer to like 1-to-1, so the shaft, whatever your revs are doing, it's going to spin it once, kind of thing. Where the Suzuki will almost spin it twice.
Yeah.
So you're getting a faster prop action. So then he started getting into all the pitch of the prop and all this, and kind of surface area, the diameter, pitch, and all this sort of thing. And I was like, oh, this is way over my head. But what he worked out through that, he's like, okay, there's a couple of options. And then we went, and he was like, we got to find a company that makes a prop, because Mercury had, with all their little ones, they had a company that, maybe Trophy, I want to say, and again, don't quote me on that, the company that made the props, and they used to buy aftermarket stainless ones, because they had a range of pitches and diameters that they could put in 3 blades or 4 blades. And then we ended up with the Suzuki, it came with I want to say a 15 pitch, 13-inch diameter 3 blade, and it was fine. It actually trolled real good. But what it would do at speed, if it was a bit choppy, it would cavitate. Yeah. And I was just like, but everything else was fine. In terms of like trolling, it was mint from like day one. But once we put the 4 blade on, that thing turned into an animal. Like out of the hole, just whoosh. And it just so happened there's one prop in all of New Zealand, and they stopped making it. And it was the one 4 blade that you could get for a Suzuki. And they don't make them anymore. Well, I think that's what they were saying. So we had this one. He's like, we got one option, but he goes, from all my equations, it should be right. And I was like, should be? He goes, I've got a pretty strong feeling it'll be good. So chucked it on, and instant like game changer in terms of performance of the motor was unreal. But what we noticed in terms of with the gearing of the motor, the boat would troll faster without it wanting to plane. Yeah.
It's crazy, eh?
Which was crazy.
And how much faster though?
Yeah, so now, I was averaging between probably 6.2 and 6.8, like I said, where now I can easily sit at like 7.5, 7.6 knots.
Was like 20% better, 25% better.
Yep.
That's massive for a little boat, eh?
Yeah, so I actually used less litres per hour. So I used to troll at 6.8 litres per hour with the Mercury, and with the Suzuki I troll probably an average of nearly a knot and a half faster. And if I got to that speed on the old boat, like I could get it there, but I'd be doing like probably about 9.2 litres an hour, and it would be like pretty much planing, like any touch of sea, it would just like boom, and it would take off like. Just couldn't do it. Where I troll at that speed at like 6.4 litres per hour. Yeah. So I'm actually getting a knot and a half of extra speed at less fuel efficiency. Yeah.
Well, your litres per nautical mile will be
it's
way down.
Unbelievable. I used to average a big day out of Ragland, and the dudes with the big boats will probably like be gutted when they hear this. But I used to do, like. Big day, it's 30-mile run, so you're, launching at 5:30 in the morning, getting back at bloody, stupid hour sometimes, or, some nights, middle of the night, and Coast Guard's ringing up, but that's a story for another day. But, getting back at, sort of 8, 9 o'clock at night with a 30-mile run in and out, and I'd burn probably 90 litres to 100 litres. Most I ever did was 100 litres in a day. And I travel with, I carry 130, so have plenty left over. But with the new motor, I average between 72 and 74 litres a day on an exact same day.
It's huge.
Huge change. Like,
and you would have covered more ground.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
So obviously, like that says it again.
Yeah, because you're going a knot and a half faster.
Yeah, and you're covering more ground, getting more chance of presenting to more fish.
Yeah.
So like it's
getting a few extra passes in.
Yeah, and you're presenting your spread in a better action too.
Yeah.
So like it's got so many wins, eh?
Yeah.
Like that's what I was like. That's what the whole evolution of this boat is just like. Oh man, like there's such a thing about changing the motor, and everyone like when you changed it, eh?
Yeah.
It's like, why did you change your motor, man?
Yeah. Oh, you're
an
idiot.
And like in the background, me and you were laughing because I'm like, dude. this is probably going to be better.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
But
yeah.
everybody's like, oh, sound of your motor, like that boats to raise the heck out of them. I'm like, you have no idea why we did this, mate.
Yeah.
You know, like it was just coincidence that you met those, like the Suzuki guys at that
Yeah.
time. Otherwise, we never would have
Nah.
really thought about that because you wouldn't have got it out of the motor that you had before.
Yeah.
So it all sort of was sort of like meant to
Yeah.
happen, I guess, in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
respect.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, it was real interesting because obviously fishermen are, you know, like overthinkers. And I think with marlin fishing, it like happens a shitload, and that's the importance of having consistency and having confidence in your setup and knowing that you're taking out a lot of variables because there's so much time of sitting waiting. If it you know, like you're not sitting and waiting, but there's a lot of idle time between fish.
Yeah.
So if you've got head noise, fuck, it's going to eat you alive on like day after day.
Yeah.
But if you can eliminate that, you can actually really enjoy your fishing.
Yeah.
And that's been, I think it's kind of, I've never had a lot of head noise when I've been fishing, but I've had a lot of, like back in the day, I'd have a lot of head noise when I used to miss a lot of fish.
Yeah.
But I think again with my rugby sort of background, I could bin things really quickly. But what I did notice is that I became inconsistent because I was searching for the consistency. So I wasn't inconsistent in terms of like erratic, but I was searching for something. So I was trying to find my consistency because I knew that was the key. I just didn't know how to get there. Like I knew how fishing and being patient in an area was the key, but I didn't know how to do it effectively.
Yeah.
So I would be in a spot, but it would be aimless driving in a spot. You know, I didn't have autopilot. Definitely wasn't paying enough attention to the current and the sea and that kind of stuff. And probably chased action too often. So instead of trusting what I saw, someone would hook up, you know, like you'd see it, and it's quite a common occurrence, especially on the West Coast here. Someone gets a bite and all the boats go whoom, straight over to there. And no doubt there's fish there for a reason, and every now and then someone else will catch one. But quite often, well, now I don't move because if I'm working a spot, there's a really strong reason or gut feeling that, or you know, all the signs laid out there.
Because you've seen them in the past and it's worked.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're like, oh, I'm confident in what I'm seeing here. Like, I'll get a shot here.
Yeah,
you know?
and the action might. And Hokianga this year was a really good example of that.
Yeah.
So you had a really good day, shared the intel, and we went out, and I went through like an area when we set the gear, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a nice bait ball there, and I marked it, and then marked another one, and I was like, oh yeah, well, where Bonze was fishing was, you know, sort of 3 miles south, so I moseyed down there.
I remember the day well.
Yeah, and I was moseying down, and my gut just told me, you need to go back. And I was like, what I kind of noticed, I guess, in that travel towards where you'd been fishing the day before, because I kind of had a mark where me and Hugo fished 2 years prior, which was pretty much the same area that you fished that day before. And I sort of got to the mark where I fished with Hugo first, and I was like, oh, it looked better back there. I reckon we just go back. And then my mate Joey's like, oh, fuck, I don't know, bro. Your job's to find the fish, and then I'm just going to have a sleep. So anyway, so I turned around and I went back and I was like, oh yeah, that bait's still here. And I was like, it didn't look like this anywhere else. And then literally the one pass saw the bait, I was like, oh yep, did a turn, came back over it, got a bite straight away. And I was like, oh, this is me for the day.
It's
and just settled in.
Yeah, but it's so funny actually fishing there as well.
Yep.
Because I'd had that good day the day before, so I went back to that area, and everybody else had obviously known that it was a good area, and there's like probably 40 boats there, and I'm just like all day, like
navigating through.
Yeah, and I was just like, man, like, and then you told me, like, I was like, oh, no, man, I'm out of here, there's too many boats, and if I wouldn't have had the day before, I wouldn't have gone there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's the good thing about you guys rocking up. Like, oh, no, you saw sign and you fished what you saw instead of me going down to where I'd obviously had the fish.
Yeah. And there was fish there too, though, right?
Like,
yeah, people were catching them, but it was just hard to manage
I couldn't run my lines and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, you got people on the radio and in my ear and that. I'm like, you just didn't feel comfortable all day. And then I came up to you, had a bite pretty much straight away once I got in the area. I obviously didn't have any luck catching it, but once I got up to where you were, I was like, oh, well, there's bugger all boats here and you're just mowing it, you know? And I like watched you like bang, bang, bang. I was like,
Fuck yeah, it came alive in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing was like through that morning period, I watched a lot of boats catch or hook up around me.
Yeah.
But they all left, you know, they'd be passing
Always
through
cracks
or
me up
whatever.
that, eh?
And I was like, and yet you can get like, a lot of people will look at that and get fucked off. So they'll be like, fuck, I'm working this area. And they just roll through and get a bite.
That's fishing, man.
Yeah, and I used to be like that.
Yeah.
I remember I worked this spot one day out by the pins, the Alderman pins, and I mowed this bait all day and it looked mean. I was like, we're going to get railed here.
Yeah.
And I watched this boat come from the horizon, just trolling back from the hook probably, heading back to fucking Pawanui and this big, beautiful Riviera.
Yeah.
And they just literally, I do my run, I'm at the bottom of my run, I turn, I'm running back up, they come across in front of me, bang, on. And I was just like, and I remember that feeling of being like real fucked off.
Yeah.
But now I see that and I'll be like, I trust it, they're here.
Yeah.
So I will just stay there and I will not leave.
Yeah, and that's like, that's a total mindset thing. Like, I'm the same as you. Like, I'm like, oh, the lucky bastard. But I was like, I knew, like, I'm in a good spot. I knew there was one here. Yeah, I might not have been my chance, but I'll go home.
Yeah.
Oh, bummed that it wasn't me, obviously. But, like, I'm like, nah, I was in a good spot.
Yep.
You know?
I wouldn't have done anything different.
No, I wouldn't have done anything different. And it just wasn't my lucky day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, that was, I guess, that day for us. It wasn't exactly super lucky. Like, what did I have? 5 bites? 4 bites? 5.
But,
4. Sorry, yeah. We only caught one of them.
But that was the whole thing about what we're talking about, like changing the engine, and everybody going, oh man, why would you change your boat? Well,
what if it's better?
Exactly. What if it's better? And then the other thing is, like, from my experiences, right? Like, I just come back from fishing the Azores, hottest blue marlin bite of the century, they're calling it. Like, it's nuts, mate, you know? But in the middle of that season, it's really interesting. We had 7 days where we didn't even get a bite. And the hottest blue marlin bite, and like my boat's ruined like that. And then the other boat beside us before that, he had a run of 9 days with no bites. And like, you feel for the people, man. Like, you feel for the captains, eh? You're like, come on, man. And like, you know, you start to question your boat and all that kind of stuff. And while he's having the slow run of 9 days, we're catching. Yeah. And then it switches round and he slays them. Hasn't changed anything on the boat. Yeah. Next minute, the boat's just slaying. Yeah. And embarrassing everyone. And like, then I'm like, can't even get a bite on my boat. I'm like, the boat's like something wrong with the boat. Yeah, like, and then you go out like on the 7th day or the 8th day, straight away, bang, blue marlin right there. You're like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, haven't done anything different. Yeah. And, you know, like, so a lot of that stuff about like engine noise, there's probably something, there's definitely something to it. Yeah. But there's also a lot to where you put the boat. Yeah. Like, and then sometimes you just don't run over them. Yeah. That's it. You know?
Well, yeah, because you talked about like what we visually saw in Learnton Kona, and watching the boats there with the Omni sonar and being able to mark fish. Yeah. What they say on Snafu, they got a 1.5 kilometre radius,
something
side,
crazy.
forward and back.
Yeah, like
that they can, if a fish is in the top 50 metres of the water column, they'll see it. Yeah. Yeah, and then they just go and, but they literally, they don't troll, and the fish doesn't come swimming 500 metres to come find them and eat the lure. They put the boat, they try and work out the angle the fish is swimming on, and they do a pass directly across in front of it to put the lure in front of its nose to get it to bite.
And it was interesting.
So it teaches you got to run it over.
You got to run it over, but it's also interesting. Yeah, you may run it over, but they may not eat either.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
they don't eat every time.
Nah, not every time. So that was like, that sonar fishing teaches you a lot when you see it. You know, like, even if you don't have one, like when
just watching it.
Yeah, just watching it go on. So
Because
yeah.
I've like thought about this a little bit because, you know, like we used to talk about it. Did you find the fish or did the fish find you?
Yeah.
As a statement, you know,
Yeah.
like this area looks good. There's plenty of bait. The current's pushing. Whatever. All the signs you like to see, and you mow it, and then you get a bite, and you're like, "Oh, fucking new one was here," and you're like, "Yeah, but did you find that fish or did he come find you?"
Yeah, well,
And
is he looking on a bit of structure?
Yeah. But then you think about that, and it's like, oh, I remember when you first said that to me, I was like, oh yeah, fuck, they know that because I'm consistent in working that area. The fish is like something's over there, and they come, but they ain't coming to the boat. They're coming to whatever's there.
Yeah.
And you just happen to be there when it turns up.
Exactly.
Then you get the bite. So when I think of the Omni, I feel that it would either. Well, some people, it could actually fuck their fishing because they'd be constantly hunting versus trusting instincts, working an area that looks really good.
Well, it's really funny you say that.
Yeah.
Because when I was in the Azores, the Omni wasn't as effective as it is.
In Kona?
No, and I mean, I only go with what people tell me. I can't tell. I've never had one, but I've just seen. Like, I think it's an amazing tool. But talking to the captains, a couple of the captains that were like watching us fish the charter boats that didn't have the Omni, they're like, oh man, like I feel so obliged to fish the Omni because I've got it.
Oh, yeah.
And they're watching you, like, whereas like you don't have to, you just run your lines, you fish your drop-offs or you fish your bait or whatever it is, and like they're like, man, I wish I could just turn the Omni off
and just fish.
Yeah. But like, and we're all like, oh man, imagine the Omni.
Yeah.
But so I mean, it's an amazing tool, but in certain areas, you still got to be a good fisherman. You know, like it doesn't, like in some places it can definitely be the difference, but in some places not so much. You know,
Yeah.
but I think it's like everything. It's a tool in the box, and it's a very, very good tool, mayday. You know.
Yeah.
But that you cannot beat a little bit of understanding of like fishing, you know?
Yeah. Because it's and obviously like we're not going to put Omni and Mini Chiefie just so everyone's clear. Yeah. It's not viable. And it's fucking super expensive. How much does it cost?
$200,000 or something.
USA.
I'm not sure, but it's a lot of money anyway.
It's a lot of money. Yeah. So if you think about, you think about it and like it's a hell of a tool, but it's a very, very expensive tool.
The cool thing about it would be like, say, like I always think about it like that you went to a ledge or a bit of structure where you thought there was fish. With the Omni, you could drive there and like check if there's actually fish there, and if there was no fish, you move to the next one. Yeah. But it, like what you're saying about maybe messes somebody's headers, they drive around and find them where there's no structure and stuff in the middle of nowhere. You're like, oh, why are fish in here? Well, there's fish here. You know, this machine says that there's fish here.
Because it's like what I guess I'm really obviously dictated to and limited by conditions and the sea and stuff, and just the fact of having a small boat. I can't, like, I've got to be really calculated with my fishing. I have to be, I can't just go out and like, head all around the ocean side because it's just not viable like in a small boat. So like what the whole process of how we've set the boat up, the system, the consistency has helped me have more success. And then by being out there and having success, I've been able to build up, I guess you would call it like a library of knowledge. Yeah. So, and within that library of knowledge is spots, and what I've noticed is, I remember Sean Thompson telling me when I first got into it, he goes, bro, they're just like snapper. They're there for a reason and they'll be there next year as well. And he's like, the amount of times I've caught fish in the same place, and he's like, years and years, like the same area will produce fish. And then I remember him saying that to me, and then I've proven that theory so many times over, like so many times. Yeah. So I'm just like, I have a lot of confidence now because I have a good library. Yeah. Like over time you build up this.
Yeah, and some areas are better some areas than others. You know? And same with snapper fishing.
Yeah, and what I notice is like what I noticed last year, and like I said, about how I pushed out a bit further that day and had the one on the teaser was the sea direction. I was like, oh, this is what it looked like that day when we had all those bites. So I think it will be good to go and have a look there.
Yeah.
Literally first pass, fish on the teaser, eat straight away. I was like, oh, okay. So it taught me again from the library, like, fuck, that's a good thing if I notice this. Because what I fished that area earlier in the season, actually 27th of December when I went out, completely different sea direction. It was coming, almost not the opposite direction, but so we'll say it's coming from the southwest, it was coming from the northwest. So it was quite a big sort of change. And I was just fished that area, there's heaps of gannets and heaps of bait and shit there. And I was like, oh yeah, we're going to be on here, but there's nothing. But when that sea was coming from the southwest, that's when the fish were there. And heaps of them. So, but then with that north-west sea direction, I went to another spot and there were fish there.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's what we talk about, the pool of knowledge. You're growing your pool of knowledge, and as you said, your library. That's how you get better at stuff. Like, it's not that you were, like we talked about, not that you were wrong before.
Just
you didn't have enough knowledge in the pool, So, the more knowledge you get, the better decisions you can make.
What else did we do to the boat?
I don't know, man.
In the last season, the big two changes was the adding the extra height and then another teaser, limiting. Well, I guess like another thing too is like limiting creating more but less at the same time. That was a big thing. So adding another teaser, but limiting an item from the spread in terms of a rod was huge.
Because I was like, man, you're going to have so much, okay, you're going to do this, but you're going to have so much gear. And
but the best thing is now is like, I go fishing, and it's a little bit of setup time when I get there to put the riggers up, etc. Because I do that out on the water. But it's an extra, 5 to 10 minutes.
I mean,
like, it's nothing.
Yeah, but think about it. Like, say somebody's into sailing and they've got a little sailing dinghy. I mean, there's some rigging going on there. You're like moaning about an extra couple of like snaps or something that you've got to do. It's the amount of time for the reward.
Is nothing.
It's nothing, mate.
And that's what like people say, oh fuck that. And it's like, well, but it works. So why wouldn't you put the extra little bit of time in setting up for the result? At the end of the day, it does make a big difference.
And you no one can argue with the end result.
Nah.
This is why.
There's because now I fish a dredge, 2 teaser chains, 4 lures. I get a fish on. If I get one fish on, all I got to clear is 3 rods because I just press 3 buttons, and then my fucking electric reels pull everything else in, and it all sits where it needs to sit. Like, they've all got automatic stops on them. And for something that you spend so much time doing, if you think about, if you're lucky enough to be able to fish as, not as everyone would love to fish, I'm sure, more than they can. But if you get to fish as much as as possible, because a lot of people do have flexibility in their jobs, and I especially noticed that with the people that are into marlin fishing, they do it because they actually, for one, they have time, or they have opportunity because of the work that they do, or financially they're really stable, or whatever it may be. It's like it is an expensive sport. But to lay out 3 electric reels to give you the efficiency to be able to do it better, it's nothing in terms of what you spend on fuel a season.
And guys go, oh man, you got electric reels. I'm like, yeah, but you've just gone out and spent $20,000 on a sounder, mate. There's the electric reels, and the comparison is very small. So
because there's different ways to.
I mean, you didn't just get then this is put it in perspective. This has been a how many year journey to get to this point?
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it's not like you just
7
went out.
seasons?
Yeah, it's not like you just went out and spent all this money and bought
Yeah.
things straight away. We started with hand lines to start
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
Dredge on a hand
That
line.
was still 2 years
Yeah,
ago. I
yeah.
was a dredge on a hand line. And
teaser, chain on a hand line. And then, just like, you and that's what I say, like, I get people come.
Was
and they
electric
listen.
reel on the dredge first?
Yeah.
That was the first one.
But I get people that come to me and they've listened to the podcast and they're like, okay, well, I want to do it like this, like what we talk about in the podcast, and I don't have the budget to do it all at once. The thing is about getting set up is making a plan to future-proof for yourself. Like, okay, we can...
No point handling on the way.
Because then you're wasting your money. Like, and I'm very conscious of that because, like, not everybody has huge disposable income, and I started with, like, obviously nothing, and I'm lucky enough that it's my job, so I get to have those as tools, you know. So that's a little bit different to most people, but like starting with a plan. And then being able to have a future-proof plan is huge, because then you're not buying stuff that's not going to go together, you know, like you're actually working towards getting all the pieces. Or else, I mean, the best thing is, like, if you really want to, is just go whole hog and you've got everything. You don't need to buy anything in the end, you know?
Well, the other thing too is, like, that if you buy quality, it actually will last you your lifetime.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, you're buying, you know, I just look at my gear that's just sitting there, like the new rods and stuff, like that'll last me lifetime.
Oh, you're not going to need another set again.
No, as long as you look after it. And there might be a little bit of failure here and there, but it'll be human error. Like if you don't service your reels, they will let you down. But if you service them, you know, like if you look after them, clean your gear, like all that stuff, it will last. Like, you get a good set of riggers, what you'll have to change the mono on it, which will cost you, I don't know, $40.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, every 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons maybe. Like, Yeah, well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like, once you've got it, it's relatively easy to maintain as long as you look after it. You know? Yeah, like those clips as an example, like the ones that we're using now, those things are like phenomenal piece of kit.
Yeah, it's like everything. They're twice the price.
Yep.
But they last for God knows how long.
Yeah, but not just that, but like, because obviously we're really about consistency.
Oh yeah, the actual consistency of
the consistency
release
of the release
is
like
way better.
I haven't even touched them since last year, and that put them up the other day, and I thought, I'll just crack it, you know, put the scales on it, bang, perfect.
Yeah.
And I was like, like I'm, you know, you leave something sitting like all winter. They've just been sitting in my fishing room, and then you just go to it, grab it, boom, and it just breaks.
I'm getting like jacked up about a set of clips.
Yeah.
But it's a badass bit of gear, you know. It fits into your system, and you're like, this is me. Yeah. You know.
You buy it once. Yeah. Like, the other clips they're good, but you'll probably, over the course of the lifetime of those, you'll save money, because those other clips, you'll go through them more regularly. Yeah,
but the good thing about that is that the other clip still does the job.
Yep.
You know, you can start with that for sure.
You can start with that, which we did with mine. Yeah, we started with the other clips and then transferred
and that's the whole thing about this whole journey, is having that plan that you can adjust it.
Yep.
You know, and it's not walking in and going, oh, here, man, you need this. Well, does it fit your plan?
Yeah.
No. Well, I don't need it.
Yeah.
You know, unless you want it. You know.
Sort of thing. Well, that's like if I built Mini Chiefie again, like, it'd be awesome, because it just lay it out from the start, like how we've, you know, the point we've got it to now, where, you know, like, rather than obviously having a recut to put the new rod holder, you know, configuration in, and that was quite cool to be able to show people that visually last night, because that's probably been the biggest, single biggest question paired with the teaser, how you have your teaser set up. Like, connected to the rigger. Those would be the two biggest questions I get asked, like, from social media, because everyone's heard about it. They know how effective it is. Yeah. So they're, I want to see it. Like, So it was good for people to be able to see that last night. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there'll be a few people, like, changing.
Changing their rod holders, eh?
Yeah.
I wonder if everyone will go to bent butt rods because they look cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, that story I tell about that is so true,
Yeah.
and it's was such a lesson out of that, you know, like what happened.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what I like in terms of, because I like everything consistent. So for me, I would, because obviously bent butt rods are way better to have in your corners. So in terms of the consistency, I'd always go to bent butts because I actually need them to be all the same.
yeah,
Because I would fuck with my head if I had 2 bents and 2 straights.
yeah,
I
agree
would
with
change my boat
Yeah.
to make it fit having all the same rods rather than change my rods to fit the boat.
Yeah, it's
personally.
So, yeah, well, the thing is, like it's so interesting talking to like guys that would come up afterwards and they're like, oh yeah, I can't fit that in my boat, and you're like, oh well, like just tell me what's wrong, and they tell you, and you're like, oh yeah, and they're like, oh my rod holders won't allow me to fit them in there, and I'm like, oh, there's actually some options, man. They're like, oh, here's the options here. I'm like, yeah, you can change the angle of your pin in your rod holder, it can still stay the same direction. Oh yeah, I didn't think of that. Like, you know, like just because we've done it so much.
Yeah, and you've got the little swivel.
You got the swivel,
like
drop-ins
gimbals,
and
yeah,
stuff
drop-in
like that,
gimbals,
which has been game changer for
Well, we
lot of
used them in
boats.
Kona.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
didn't
that's
we?
cool.
On Spellbound.
Yeah. Yeah. So like there's so many options. It's just sometimes people need another head to bounce it off, you know? So, and that's what I'm sort of lucky enough that we've done so many boats now, like come to the factory and we've had to like work it out.
Yep.
Or we've gone to a marina and we've done like a boat and you're like, oh man, how do we get this to work? You know, so that's the thing is that actually quite a bit of time involved sometimes, like in rigging certain boats, you know?
Yeah.
So, but that's the great thing about yours, it's actually really simple.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's easy to make change because it's small.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny, because you get all that gear in it and you look at it last night, it's once you've got it up, like it's such a simple platform.
Yeah.
Like when you're in there, it's actually like, holy shit, there's all this space.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like heaps of space.
Yeah.
Like more than enough.
But then the other thing I was saying to you as well, like just from my little experiences I've had on Mini Chiefie, like you actually get in it and you feel like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to catch a fish on this boat, you know? Like, looks like, that definitely looks like it's going to catch a fish.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I say, you don't feel like you're going out and you're like, oh, nah. Like, once you see the spread behind that boat, you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They'll catch them.
We're on.
Yeah, you know, like we just got to put the boat in the right place.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and like when it's our turn, we run over one, probably going to get one here, eh?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, that was like when I took Max from FC Boats, like the first day I put the autopilot, and I think I mentioned it maybe in the setup podcast, but he was like, as soon as I set the boat up, we sat down, and he just sort of sat there and was looking at the spread and sort of taking it all in. I could see him looking at the riggers and everything, and then he just like looked at me and goes, fuck, now I know why you catch fish. He was like, man, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He goes, I kind of understood the theory when you talk about things, but actually seeing it on the water, watching the presentation of everything is like, holy, like, yeah. I can see why.
Yeah,
like,
they
the fish
troll
come.
different, straight away. Like you're like, oh yeah, like look at the lures, like look at the
It cruises. That thing cruises around like it's a 40-footer.
Yeah, that's
you
what
know
I
what
always
I mean?
joke
Like,
about.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing is too, like, okay, then you set your 40-footer up like that.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all like that's the great thing about your boat is you can transfer that to anything.
Yeah.
You know, and it's relatable to everyone that sees your boat. Like, okay, well, yours is on the extreme small side pretty much.
Yeah.
You know?
Because the other thing we noticed too last year, just sort of recapping on that, is obviously having the autopilot, which we've spoken about like a number of times. I've been able to be way more observant, and same with the filming, right? We've talked a lot about the filming aspect of it now.
Yeah, your filming is interesting, man.
Yeah.
Like, and how you analyse it, you get right into it. Eh?
Yeah. But that's how we noticed the bites on the riggers, which then we added more speed, which then we, so we're watching fish's behaviour and all that kind of stuff. But when we went to Kona and I was editing up the triple video, and there's the bite we had just before, and then even the triple bite, there's just about every single time something happens because the boat, because of the size of the boat, it reacts a lot to the sea. So what we noticed is and I went through all my old footage, just before every single bite, there's a change in behavior of the boat. There's a rock, there's like, in terms of the boat will change direction or do a big turn. It's on autopilot. So it would be going in a straight line, but you'll see the current dictate it and it'll do a big arc and then it'll straighten back up and then bang, there he is. And then that bite with Gleason, before we got the triple, you can hear the boat like a little
noise,
tap, tap, in the ocean, like a little tap on the hull of the water, like dum, 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 then it just goes, like, so obviously a current change is like, just goes silent, then boom, just piled on the rigger.
Look for that noise.
Drive around, oh, the noise changed, get ready. Oh, no, nothing. And it's like, but it's quite interesting when you look at that, you learn, okay, there's clearly something to changing current. Like there's clearly something to, like that in itself.
The current's
because
everything,
Yeah. Well, it's like, when you're snapper fishing, it always goes good when the current starts pushing. So there's clearly there has to be something to fish behaviour with the current. But we noticed it big time. The other one last year was smell.
Yeah, I obviously can't do that through the video.
No.
Yeah, it was interesting listening to what you had to say.
Yeah, so it was like, well, the first time I smelled it, I thought I had an electrical fault in the boat. I was like, fuck, something's wrong. Like, what's that smell? I thought a fuse had gone. I checked the fuses, like, because I was like, what? It's kind of a hot smell, but fishy at the same time. And then, we got piled on the, might have been when I lost my teaser, I think, when the fish came smoked teaser and then ate the short, but I missed that one. And then in the sort of chaos of that, I was sort of like, oh, fuck, like, had kind of forgotten about the smell. And then we carried on, and I was like, man, fuck, did you smell that? And then Gary I was with was like, yeah, I smelled that before. I was like, yeah, I thought I had like that's why I was checking the fuses, because I thought I had a like electrical fuse. And he goes, oh, I thought it was, and there was a fishing boat out a bit further from us. He goes, oh, I thought it was a dude on there having a ciggy, like smoking from a distance. And he was like, I was like, yeah, it was weird. It's like a hot kind of mix between like pilchards, like bait and smoking. And we're yarning about it. We could smell it. And then boom, double. We're like, oh, fuck. Like, oh, we're on. And then again, those two both fell off. And then we're like resetting the gear. I was like, bro, there's got to be something to that smell. Because we smelt it earlier. Then we got a bite. That happened again. And then we reset the gear, turn around and running back, and we're yarning. There's one of my videos on YouTube, and we're talking about it. And I was like, bro, that's that smell. And he's like, yeah, that's it. And I was like, man, there must be feeding here. And then boom, rigger goes. Got him on. And I was like, oh, shit. And then from there, what I noticed through the next probably 3 trips, including the day I got the triple, is that smell was consistent. Yeah, like when quite often, like not every single bite. And when we got the triple, there was no smell at that point, but the bite we had prior, there was that smell. So I don't know. It must have been not clearly the bait or what the marlin were feeding on, but it was real evident.
Going back to that, your triple though, pretty like big highlight, eh?
yeah. We haven't even talked about that.
That's like, I was like, if you would have thought that was going to happen at the start of the journey, and then you end up like getting into this, and the next minute you've like caught a triple, which is like, I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
Well, I've never caught a triple marlin in New Zealand.
Oh, yeah?
Nah. I haven't. I caught a few doubles, but I never caught a triple, you know, like fishing on the coast especially. You know?
Yeah. Well, that was like, and, you know, to go back to the boat setup, that allowed us and helped us to catch those fish too. Because if you think about it, trolling 2 teaser chains, a dredge, and 4 lures, and you get a triple on, literally had to clear 1 rod.
Yeah, how many fish did you actually have up there, you reckon?
We only saw the 2.
Oh.
Yeah, so we saw the two that ate first, and then the third one that ate when I stopped the boat and pulled the lure out. Well, I hadn't stopped the boat, but I'd slowed the boat, pulled the lure out of the clip, and then wound into it as it was sinking, and the fish had grabbed it. So no doubt there was, another one there, but didn't see any others.
Yeah.
Just saw those, obviously those three. One of them, like the two that ate, I clearly come up, but that one must have been in the dredge or something. But it was, in terms of that, being able to just go boom, boom, boom on the buttons and everything's out of the water. We're literally we're standing there with one rod to clear. So I get that rod out of the water, and then it's all damage control and managing line loss and angles of rods. So obviously I was playing musical chairs with the rods, and we kind of got to, we're really lucky that the fish put themselves in a position, but I honestly put down the size of the boat playing a big factor in that. The ability for me to be able to maneuver the rod around the boat uninhibited pretty much, apart from passing it around the rigger and etc., is really helpful. As well as the fact that the boat is really easily for the fish to pull around. So taking the boat out of gear, at one, like on the video, we've looked at it, and the boat is smoking backwards because two of the fish are going in one direction. So it's just hauling, like we're probably doing like 2 or 3 knots. Sort of like chugging along because the fish are, and that's only on 4.5 kilos of drag. So it's not like we're fucking locked up on them. So that kind of, I guess, shows how easy the boat is for the fish to pull around, which is, obviously a learnt process too on how I need to maneuver the boat to create drag on the fish as well, which we spoke about last night. But in terms of that, that kind of triple and, Gleason being on the boat, like such a good person to have in that scenario. Again, probably because of his sporting background, is very calm, can regulate his emotions. He was really clear. And, I radioed Woody to come over, and we're going to chuck one of the boys on or give them a rod to, catch one of the fish. But by the time, we'd sort of settled into it, and he was on one, and the other two had kind of calmed down and in their pattern, he was like, bro, fuck it, I'll catch all 3. And I was like, oh, whatever. Like, sweet. And I'd never caught 10 in the season, so I just wanted one. I was like, fuck, I just want one of these, because then I've got 10. And I hadn't told anybody that I was sitting on 9, but I was just like, oh, I really want to, I want to get to 10. So then, and, I guess the way that we approached that whole fight and the journey of learning that I'd had, Gleason's obviously done a lot of fishing with you too, so we were both really confident in what we're doing, but calm at the same time, because we understood it was just the process. It was like deal with one fish, and there's a shitload of luck that goes into it too, because those fish could have easily cut each other off because they're going ape shit, but for whatever reason they didn't. And then we were able to, sort of manage the fight and get to the point, and caught all 3 of them within probably just over an hour. Like, it was unbelievable. But again, I put that down a lot to the boat, because I reckon they don't know, because they're not. It's not like they're trying to drag a fucking 40-footer backwards. They're just, their behaviour changes when you, and that's that drag management, drag control.
But you always say that about them on the leader too, on your boat, eh?
Quite often really calm. You can just pull them up alongside the boat and just hold them on the leader, and they'll just swim there. Very rarely get them rack up, and like every now and then you get one, but not very often. I probably caught dozens, or probably a dozen fish before I ever had one jump on the leader. Because I just pull them out. I was like, this is easy. Just pull them up and grab them by the bill. And I remember, because Woody obviously he's got a 6.5 meter senator. And he was like, when he got his first couple up on the leader, and they're just going ape shit and jumping into the side of the boat and stuff, he was like, oh, it's a bit different. Like, when it was on your boat, it's easy. You just pull them up and grab it. And there's obviously clearly there's something to the way that they can swim. Like, they just feel comfortable. Being able to just sort of pull the boat along. Because quite often, a lot of the time, I'm, just in gear or out of gear. And they're just actually pulling the boat along.
No, it's that's a heck of a journey, that triple, man. That's awesome.
Because you had a big one on that day out in bay.
Yeah, out of the bay, there's a big fish.
Yeah.
Didn't end well, but
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. But you text me, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I just lost like probably the biggest blue marlin I've seen in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, yeah. You might have said, probably 800 pound.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, we just caught 800 pounders.
Yeah, and I was like, what are
Gleason
you
just
talking
caught
about?
800 pounder striped marlin.
I was like, what are you talking
You're like,
about?
what? And I was like, well, we just caught 3.
Yeah, because I was like, I had this cryptic message going, are these guys been on the bloody beers, man? Like.
It was a pretty it is like, as a fisherman, that's the sort of stuff
Yeah, that's what everybody like.
that's what you dream
That's
of.
why everybody's listening to the podcast. It's the same thing. It's whether it's catching their first marlin, starting to become consistent catching marlin, catching a triple. It's just that's what it's all about. That's what we do it for, man.
Yeah.
Like you have these special moments, mate.
Yeah.
And then you have these conversations like we're having, and like that's what we do it for, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and me and Gleason just sort of sat there because we were talking all day. We're like, fuck, I love fishing, we're having a awesome day. It was so good, and we're just like, I think I said to him, I was like, bro, the one thing I love about fishing, bro, is that any moment, like the fish of a lifetime could just pile on, and it's you'll talk about it for the rest of your life, whether you catch it or don't or whatever happens. But I said it's that instinct in me that makes me so hungry for it, and I'm just sitting there and I can watch the lures all day because I'm like, oh, imagine if just big blue marlin turns up, boof, and you'd be like, oh yeah, and then all of a sudden we caught the triple, and we were kind of sitting there, and I turned the boat off. We were sitting there and cracked the beer. We kind of, celebrated, had a bit of a hug and shit. And I turned the boat off. I said, fuck, need a beer. Sat down, had a beer. We were kind of just sitting there, beautiful, still flat, so flat, like a lake. And we're just like, holy shit, did that just happen?
Yeah.
And Gleason's like, bro, that's exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah.
We're always like, fuck, over that next swell could be the fish of a lifetime. He's like, bro, we just caught 3.
Yeah.
He's like, how the fuck did that happen? I was like, crazy how quick a day can change, because we had a fish on 40 minutes beforehand and it had jumped off, and then we're just sort of like, oh well, at least we had a bite kind of thing. I was like, it's all good. We had a bite, gutted as we had one on the teaser earlier in the morning. It was not a terrible day kind of thing. At least we had some action, and then that happened, and it goes from being a pretty sort of, still a good day, had a bite, to all of a sudden, the best day I've ever had fishing.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the fishing, mate, and just keeping that faith, hey?
Yeah.
We have it with the charters. I had 2 people this year, it's really, really cool. Had one lady, and we'd fish for right at the start of the season, and Azores is slow normally at the start of the season, but big fish.
Yep.
And she'd fished with us, I think, 2 or 3 days, and we hadn't seen anything. And they were staying on the neighbouring island. So there was one ledge there on the way home, and that I'd been working, and I'm like, man, we've got to go because I've got to drop you off. And I'm like, man. But I'm just thinking in my head, I'm just going to run through here on my last pass. And sure enough, there on the last pass on the way home, here's an 800. It's oh yeah, please stay on. And it was so funny because it comes in and eats the corner and rips out a whole heap of line, comes off. And man, I don't normally get too wound up, and I'm just cursing because I'm oh man, just come on, give us some luck here. I felt like I'd worked the spot to get a bite, and then for it to come in and fall off. And then it ripped all this line out, and I was like, boys, wind it in, between my cursing. And then boom, it piles on, and we hook it properly.
Oh, yeah? Oh, sick.
Yeah. And we caught that, and then, so that was cool, dream fish for her.
Yeah.
Ending the trip, such a buzz, and, it's just, another thing of, don't give up.
Yep.
Till your last lure's in the boat. Don't give up. And then we had one other guy that had read an article in a magazine 30 years ago. And he's like, I always wanted to fish the Azores. And I've saved up, he wasn't a wealthy guy.
Yeah.
Saved up for his one day.
Yeah.
And he turned up and it was blowing 30 knots. And I was just like, oh, you poor bugger, man.
30 years.
Yeah, and I'm like, you turn up and it's this weather. And I'm like we're going fishing, but we're going to fish in a place where you catch fish, but you're not like amped about it, I'm like, So took the guy out, and I sort of saw like a little weather window, like stop blowing, like it dropped to 20.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna have a little punch up the side of the island here, and I caught some fish off this ledge, like right in on the neighbouring island, like a week before.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I got my window, and it just like hugged all the way up the coast, like not really fishing, just trying to get to a spot, and then get up and then just zigzag across the sea all the way down.
Yeah.
And the guy comes up on the bridge, and he's like, and he doesn't know that I've tried to actually get to the spot. Like, I was like, man, if we're gonna catch one, this is the best chance we've got today. I'm gonna put myself in the best place, you know. And he comes up on the bridge, and he's like, oh man, it's a bit slow and that. I'm like, yeah, man, but you know, you got to keep the faith, mate. Like, you never know. Like, it's been slow, but like, you just never know when it's going to happen. I said, just keep the faith. It can change any second. Literally, those words come out of my mouth, and I just hear from downstairs, like, yeah. And there's like 600-pounder on the corner, you know? Like, and I was like, dude, catches this fish of a lifetime. Yeah. Like
30 years away.
Yeah, and like, you know, catch it. That puts on a beautiful show. Got great photos. Like, it was one of the coolest fish that we've got footage of for the season. It did everything right. Yeah. Thank God it did, because it was rough as balls. Yeah. Like, it was so freaking rough. I'm like, please stay up and go down sea. Don't go up into the sea. And and then, you know, like, that was the guy's like dream outcome, you know. So just keeping that faith is huge, you know. Like, never ever give up. And it's hard to do that some days, you know. But as you say, it changes like that.
But again, going back to the setup aspect of it, and having confidence in your boat is, and if anyone can take anything out of this, is you're going to have your days, and you're going to have days that it's not your day.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I love your saying, like, we've got a 50-50 chance every time you go fishing. And I use it quite often now, like, go out and like, oh, bro, you reckon we'll get one today? I was like, fuck, got a 50% chance. And they're like, fuck, that's good odds. And I'm like, yeah, bro, fuck 50%. They're like, true. I was like, yeah, we'll either catch one or you won't. Like, it's one or the other. Yeah, but it's like, once you kind of, and I think, you know, like, obviously we talk about it heaps, but the mental aspect of fishing, mental aspect of anything, once you can eliminate just have a process to eliminate the head noise, it helps you process things way better and be more confident in the moment. And you'll have bad days, but you still got confidence in your setup.
It's really funny you mention that, because like, you obviously played professional rugby. Yep. And then I did the skip ring with guys that are the best guys around. You know, they do it every day. I'm very lucky to go and fish beside them, you know. And their head noise is very different to what the average person's fishing. And that'll be the same with the rugby players, I'm sure. You know, like, they don't, like, for example, having those 7 days of a run. Yeah, you're definitely questioning yourself, but like, your head noise is not like, oh man, it's what's going on, like all this kind of stuff. You like, it's going to swing round. And then the other thing is too, like, you fish beside those guys, and they'll have a day where they catch, say, 5, you catch nothing, and then you do another day the next day and you catch 5, and they catch like nothing or 1 or something like that. They're not really too worried about it. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, well, it wasn't my day today, because yesterday was, and then tomorrow's another day. Like, they're very confident in their abilities and setup, obviously, you know, so they don't have these conversations like we do with a weekend fisherman. You know? Yeah. That's probably like a really good way to explain it. And that's probably, that it's like anything, like I mentioned last night to the people that were lucky enough to be there in person, was the fact of, like, everybody has that in them because they have it with their life and their job. Yeah, exactly. But it's learning how to transfer that into the other aspects of life. Yeah. And that's where I've been really lucky that my rugby skills have been, and I've had a great awareness to understand that those skills are very transferable into, but I think
even more so because it's such a high pressure situation of playing on live TV in front of big crowds that it kind of quickens the learning process, if it makes sense. And if you're, like a builder and you're building a home, like they don't see that as high pressure situation, but if you actually really boil it down to it is, because you're building that house that's going to house a family for could be the rest of their lives. And if you do a shitty job, like you could ruin their life, or the house could fall down and you kill a family. So then all of a sudden, that is a real lot of pressure, but they don't think about it like that because it's public perception is not that's not a high pressure situation. Professional rugby is a high pressure situation. Catching a marlin's a high pressure situation. But why? Only because of perception. So once you're actually in it and have an understanding, all it is a process. So build a good foundation, being a setup, have confidence in that, go out and do it enough, learn.
But also, like, you mentioned being a builder and or being a professional. You're doing it all the time. The downfall that most people have is they don't get to do it enough. So when those situations arise, they're a lot more heightened as well, because, and the other thing is too, like, people do want instant, a lot more instant stuff now. Which, if you boil it back to your
world's
job,
that way,
you know that you can't become a builder and doing it a few weekends a year. So
you do your apprenticeship.
That is with this is a obviously a bloody it takes time.
It's it's I guess the social media phone aspect of the world now is that everything is, like if you want to learn something, you can YouTube it. If you want to know some information about something, you can Google it. So you can get access to information really quickly, just like this, in terms of being able to do these podcasts, be able to do the roadshow like we did last night, showing people the boat, can accelerate a certain part of the learning, but you can't go the whole way without actually putting the time in.
You've got to put the time in.
Yeah.
And that's what I say to guys, like, oh, what's my next best step? What should I get? I'm like, fuel.
Yeah. Fuel and time.
Yeah.
And the other, I guess, really good aspect of, in terms of people, I guess, having access now, is that there's actually a whole bunch of, it's a great network. Like, I look at the light gauge mafia as an example. Also, I've caught fish because of that. Like, I've fished, Hokianga as an example. That day I came out, like, yes, that I would have gone out there because I knew you, but if I wasn't, we didn't have the relationship we had, and I was on light gauge mafia, you shared those marks with everybody. You said, this is where the action was, this is, what I noticed, this is the gear I was using, and then, like, a lot of people got access to those fish the next day because of that platform.
And the crack up thing about that is, like, it was all the crew that were there at the start, and they all had, like, really good fishing. And then it's been interesting doing that and having the little meetups, the little mini tournaments that we've had. And it could just be coincidence, but it's funny, like, we get our little group of boats there and they fish our little tournament, and they seem to catch more than the other boats that are fishing that day. You know what I mean? I'm like, it could just be coincidence, but, like, we'll have a little get together and say there's 10 boats and there's like the other, like, the club's got the rest of their boats going on, and our little boats are caught, like, there's probably 5 marlin caught for the day. Our little group's caught 4 of them. You know what I mean? So you don't want to say that that it just seems to be more than coincidence.
But I think there's definitely an aspect, though, of community and, like, sharing intel that helps success, like it's there. Like, I said it last night to, like, a few people there, because they're like, oh man, thanks so much for sharing your marks, and they're people that I never met until
Yeah.
I saw them last night. But last year I gave them the area where I was fishing. And they've just been people that have followed the podcast, they've messaged me and whatnot. So, like, I've got no, like, I'm not going to go and plaster them on social media for everybody to see. But if there's a little bit of history and a relationship there, they've been great supporters of the podcast. I'm happy to share intel with them.
But that was the whole thing about them asking as well, like last night about the SSTs and all that kind of stuff. And I thought you answered it really well, because like guys were like, oh, what about the SST? And you're like, well, I don't really use it that much because I don't really understand how to read it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that I've found as well with it. I'm like, when you said that, I was like, oh man, it's exactly what I think. You know, I'm like, man, this is too, like, I don't understand how this works. Like,
the only time I get excited, like when I see an SST chart, like I will get my mates subscribe to it and they'll send me a screenshot, you know, and like of it and be like, oh yeah, this area looks good. And when I get really excited is when I look at it and go, oh, that area of nice water is where I like to go fishing. So then I'm like, sweet, I was going to go there anyway. So, and it just gives you a little bit more confidence when you go out.
But the best bit of intel is the one from the person on the water, as you said, you know, you sending the marks is worth like everything. So I mean, that's the one thing I was wishing about that SST, that there was somebody that made it simple. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, okay, instead of like, here, these couple of spots is worth looking at, not like, and this is why, you know? Yeah, because I don't really understand it. And like I said it last night, I'm not a big person that looks at temperature. Like I used to, back in the day, I was like, oh, water temp's everything. Go, oh, Mean had 21 degree water, nothing in it. Like, you know, dry around like, oh yeah, fuck, Mean has water, like, fuck, it's warm as. But I guess what I've learned over time, like the best fishing I've ever had has been, you know, out of Raglan here on the west coast, probably between 18.8 and 19.5 degrees. Like cold. In terms of like, but clarity, unbelievable. Like so blue. So I'm like, I'm all about, personally, all about colour. Like, because that's what I've had success in. So exactly. Colour and food. And the thing is, like, you know, you mentioned, I'd love like somebody with those SSTs to go, okay, well, this is why it was like that. Here's the SST. Read this, and that. Oh, okay, you know,
that makes
now
sense.
And know what to look for. It's an art, man.
Yeah.
You know,
because then I talked to Mark Collins about that. So he came out with me last year, and he's like, oh man, fucking shit, lure fisherman, like just mean as with baits, and he is like, fuck, he's an awesome fisherman for any type of fish. But he was saying like his favorite, like he's like, blue waters for blue marlin, and that's his theory. He's like, nah, you find the mix, the blue green, you'll get stripies, and that's what he fishes. That's what he knows. That's what's produced for him. So he's like, he's not even worried about the color. He likes fishing on the edge of the change. Find bait on the edge of the change, and it's good. And in saying that, the day he came out with me, he was with me the day I snapped the riggers. The first day with the new motor, new riggers. The day before, I went on the Fish City demonstrator boat. We had 2 bites. Race 3 had 2 bites, caught 1, and the water was mint, heaps of bait. I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome, come back here tomorrow. We only fished till lunchtime, I think, or just after. Went back there next day and the water was green. And everyone was on the radio. Luke Davis was there. Luke got 9 bites that day. And everyone's like, oh, was the water like this yesterday, Sweens? And I was like, nah, fuck, it was blue. And then Mark was on the boat. He goes, bro, doesn't matter. Fish will be here. And he's like, yeah, look at that. And look at bait ball, 2 big marks on it. He's like, that'd be marlin. And then, so we've just, you know, fished the area. And as I would have anyway, because the fish were there the day before. And then Luke had 4 bites by like 11 o'clock in the morning. And but the water was shit. Yeah, well, you know, in comparison, it was shit. But by the end of the day, the water had changed. So obviously the current and stuff was moving around. As well, you know? Yeah. So yeah, it's in terms of like the SST thing, like I don't understand it enough to know if it's good or not for me. But I still do look at it because I'll look and go, okay, like what's it look like out there in the area that I want to go? And most of the time I look at it and like, oh yeah, it looks pretty good where I like to fish anyway, so sweet, I'll start there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's a very you can't beat the knowledge. I can't beat
The
intel.
time.
Intel.
Intel,
You know, like especially for recreational fishing. You know.
Yeah.
But I mean, personally, I'd love to learn more about it and have better access to it. I just I don't because those people were asking last night. I was just like, man, it's way above my head. I don't really think about it. I just listen to where you caught one. You know?
But you're saying that you've had a big influx with the mafia this year too.
Yeah,
and
huge.
memberships, which
Huge,
is cool.
yeah,
And
which is
I reckon a
exciting.
lot of that is because of the, like I mentioned, those little success stories and people like coming in, and effectively that's what you want the network to be, right? You want people to be
the bigger we can grow
more
it,
successful.
the more information
Yeah.
that can be shared, and then also the better events we can have.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a fun thing, man.
Yeah.
Like, but it's got some real merit to it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I can hand on heart say like I've caught fish because of the mafia page.
Yeah.
Like I've been given like intel from it.
The
And
thing
then
is, it
first
only
time I ever
works,
fished hokey.
It only works as everyone shares.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
platform there,
Yeah.
which is an ability for everyone to share.
Yeah.
If they don't share, it doesn't work.
Yeah. I'm a big,
You know, like
I spoke about this last night with the guys when they mentioned, oh, thanks so much for like sharing your marks. Didn't have to do that kind of thing. But I'm a really big believer in karma. Like, and I don't, like I give it away to people that I think warrant it, right? So I've had plenty of people ask me on social media, but they've asked the wrong way.
Yeah.
They ain't get it.
No.
But I've had other people like that have been engaged with the podcast for a long period of time, and they might eventually have the courage to ask.
Yeah.
And I'll give them the marks. So it's like a give-take relationship kind of thing. But the way I look at it is like that it'll come back somehow. So I'm like, oh, yep, I'll share a bit of intel with a few people and went out and fished and then, see them there and then they catch a fish. I'm stoked that they caught a fish, like, and some of the days I've caught a fish and I haven't, or some days I've caught a fish and they haven't, but they're like, oh man, thanks so much. Like, you actually gave me a good spot and you were actually there. And I was like, well, you asked me where I was. So it's where I was. But like that, I get like joy out of seeing other people have success too. And I'm content in myself that I know that if there's a fish there, I back myself to catch it because I trust my process, I trust my system, and I trust the way I fish. And I also know that if I don't run the fucking thing over, I ain't going to catch it. So I can't be where their boat is because I'm where my boat is. So it's like that's just how the world works. But the way I look at it is like that'll come back somehow, somewhere. Yes, they might give me a mark one day and then I can go out and catch a fish. Or it might be that, I don't know, something along the lines and they can help me out with whatever it may be. Or it might just be that I catch a triple at the end of the season. And the way that I think, like that could be easily a byproduct, or the way I think, in terms of karma and good juju and that kind of stuff. It's like maybe that was my reward for being nice to all of those people through that season last year, because I gave the marks to a lot of people that had good success. Like Zach Holmberg is an example. He had some awesome fishing out there because like I was happy to share with him where I was fishing. And then, and others as well. And then, maybe that's my payment in terms of karma, was the fact that we ended up catching a triple. Because there's a shitload of luck that goes into that as well as good skill.
Definitely. Well, I guess we'll see what's going to come this season, mate.
Might have used all my good karma. So,
oh, well, man.
It's been good. Good to, I guess, to share the evolution of the boat and the journey. Like, I was actually quite blown away when you said, like, fuck, this has been the funnest project, that I've been involved with the boat, because like it's been such an awesome journey of learning for me, and like it's just been so cool to have access to your knowledge and for us to be able to put theories and stuff into practice.
No, it's been it's been so cool because traditionally to catch a marlin in your size boat on lures it's the hardest boat to do it in. You know, so to do a journey where it's now consistent is like, man, that's like that's what I do it for, man. You know, it's like, oh yes, it's to get a result. So I get a buzz out of it too, man. You know,
it proves the theory. You know, like I guess the coolest thing is it gives so much credit and merit to the theory and the process that, you know, all those people that sit there last night and look at the boat will go, fuck, if he can do it on that. And there'll be some people there with some beautiful boats, you know, I'm sure. And there might be a few others that have got boats maybe my size, and they'll be like, yeah, I've got confidence now. I'm going to fucking go and slay one.
Yeah.
But then you'll get the other guys that have got maybe access to, you know, something a bit bigger.
Yeah.
And then they see that and they go, oh, fuck, okay, if he can get these results out of this, I can fish. There'll be more fishable days for me than he's got. There'll be, you know, I'm not going to get dictated as much by the sea as he does. I'm going to get more consistent speed out of my boat. And if I get the presentation right, and I get the setup right, like fuck, I'm going to... And they'll drive out there onto the ocean, having seen what they've seen me do, and then see the boat and then put it into their boat with a shitload more confidence as soon as they leave the ramp, because they'll be like, fuck, if he can do it, I can do it.
Definitely, man.
Yeah,
definitely. Because like, I'll be straight up, New Zealand is a difficult fishery, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a lot of places overseas. Like, New Zealand is like hard to stay on them. Like, it's just a hard fishery.
Yeah.
You know?
Especially the East Coast, eh?
Yeah, so East Coast.
And West Coast is hard too, because you get less days.
Yeah, all of it's hard, but like, it's just like, I always feel really good every time I go out and catch a marlin in New Zealand, man. I'm like, I earned that one, eh? You know, like. So, no, it's cool, man. So this has been an awesome journey through for myself as well. You know, because I've learned a lot doing it. You know, and we've been developing new cool stuff out of it, and that's what I want to do. I want to be able to make stuff that's like the best, like things that we can make for the industry, and that only comes with being given like opportunity, you know.
Yeah.
So
no, it's
man.
cool. So I guess for the listeners, there's plenty more to come. So trust me, the Blue Marlin podcast is coming. Yeah, it's just working the time. So the original plan was that we were going to do it in Kona. The fish didn't play their part though, so it was, the whole plan. We went to Kona back in, when was it, April?
Yeah, April. Yeah, very hard fishing.
Yeah, very hard fishing. We actually had probably, out of all the boats, I think we might have been second for amount of action and fish seen.
Yeah.
But it was very hard. Yeah. Very, very hard fishing. But I learned a shitload. It was mean. And we can talk about that when we do the Blue Marlin chat. But the plan was to do it there. Obviously, the fish didn't play their part. Then obviously Bonze went to Azores, which is again, even talking to you, that's a different podcast in itself. Yeah.
That's another level, mate. Like, I've never seen... I've had good fishing in the past, but I've never seen fishing like that with as many big ones and action and that. And that really puts your processes... Like...
Everything's heightened.
Yeah.
Under real pressure.
And also, like, there's a little bit of ego involved there too. You're fishing with like some pretty big, like, names, you know. So, and you've got charters, so you don't want to let your charter down, because they're like, well, why aren't we fishing with him? Like, I'm well, because you're fishing with me, mate. So you got pressure on you to actually catch fish, you know. So it was a very cool opportunity. I feel very lucky to have been able to get that chance again to go and do that. So it just brings up a whole lot more for that Blue Marlin chat, you know, and it's fresh for me. You know. So.
Because so the Blue Marlin one's coming. There'll be one on Azores. It's going to be a good summer.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about.
And then I'm sure there'll be plenty coming up over summertime as well.
What's that going to bring?
Don't know.
You know?
Hopefully a Blue Marlin or Mini Chiefie.
Yeah, well.
Just got to put it in the spot with his Blue Marlin. But I got confidence now in the
Yeah.
boat.
It's got to fish where they are, eh?
Yeah, just got to fish where they are.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
On a day that's flat.
Yeah, yeah,
Not like our day we had on Kraken, but that was,
yeah. That's another
yeah,
story.
that's another story. But yeah, so thanks again for, and then, I don't know, the roadshow, we'll be doing that again, after
Yeah, I think so.
last
eh?
night. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was blown away at the engagement.
Mm.
Yeah, and to all those listeners that did come along, thanks very much for
Yeah.
actually making the effort, because, you know, for us to, I guess, go and commit to doing something like that, it's really cool to see that
Yeah.
people actually wanted it, and actually made the effort. Like, fuck, someone driving from Gisborne, you know, and a couple of people coming down from Auckland, like that's huge. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really good to see, I guess, the effort to put something on like that be rewarded by, you know, people coming along, and I guess it kind of shows the hunger and appetite for people out there to learn. So
Yeah.
we'll continue to share as much as we can to help bring some more success to more people.
Yeah, man.
Mm.
Well, I can't wait for the season, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's so fizzed up.
Itching, eh?
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Not long now,
Nah,
man. Not long
what
now.
are we?
We could actually go right now.
Yeah, we could, eh?
Yeah.
It's a bit windy here,
Yeah.
though.
So,
If it was flat, we'd go out of Raglan.
yeah.
Yeah.
But,
But-
after Christmas, man, should we be
Should we
into
all
it, eh?
go? Yeah, I'll be up north for
Mm.
a couple of weeks, early January, see
Yeah.
what it brings.
Just torture Marie again.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think Guns is going to come
Oh, yeah.
like for a few days camping again, so
Yeah, nice.
he'll be keen to get out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, put him on a blue marlin. Yeah.
Watch out.
Nah, cool. All right. Any final things thoughts to leave us with, Bonze?
Not really, man. We're just going to repeat ourselves. Let's just like get that boat, put some time in on your boat setup. Like
Yeah,
that's about it. Like it's
Yeah.
huge.
yeah, yeah. And trust me, it's worth it. And it doesn't have to cost the earth.
No,
You know, there's ways you can do it.
plan,
And
man.
future proof. Yeah.
Reach out.
Yeah, that's probably the big
Like,
one. Reach
reach
out.
out,
If you're
man.
thinking about doing it,
Yeah,
just honestly send a message. Like, yeah.
yeah. It's in the people. Yeah, because I've had guys that, oh man, I want to do it, but I don't have any money. I was like, okay,
Let's make a plan.
yeah,
Yeah,
we can make this work, man.
yeah,
You know? Oh,
yeah.
no worries.
Mean. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time again, Bonze. And yeah, we'll catch up with you on the next one. And all the listeners, thanks for listening. And tight lines. Before the next one comes out, hopefully everyone's been catching. Sweet.